Welcome back. I'm Brandon, the HBAR Bull, and I do some contract work for the HBAR Foundation. Today, we welcome the HBAR Foundation Senior Vice President in charge of Ecosystem Development, Rob Allen, who's been an entrepreneur in residence at FPOS and a Hedera Governing Council member representative for them as well. But deep down, he's an HBAR-barian through and through. Welcome, Rob.
Hey, Brandon. Always great to be back.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one. So, Rob, you're deeply involved with the HBAR Foundation Sustainable Impact Fund, and you were at COP27, which I've covered fairly extensively. Could you tell us about that event and what Hedera's representation looked like there?
Yes, so the Sustainable Impact Fund has the mission to bring um, the balance sheet of the planet to the public ledger. And that mission is played out across the grants that we give, the partners that we build into our ecosystem, the open source technology that we built. And you need a showcase. And that showcase every year is the COP. The COP was in Glasgow last year. It was in Sharm el Sheikh on the Red Sea in Egypt this year. It's a massive event. It has all of the world's kind of deep thinkers, leaders, and partners, all the organizations that are focused on climate action, climate change, but also increasingly things like biodiversity and water impact and the sustainable development goals that the UN sponsors. So it was right that we were there. It was right that the greenest of the distributed ledgers, the only one that is carbon negative, provably, and the ecosystem that we formed in the first year of the Sustainable Impact Fund should be put on show, not only just to demonstrate what we're doing, but also to create the alliances, the partnerships, and the ecosystem that is necessary to exponentially make a positive impact on the planet.
So one of the things that I heard about a lot there was the Guardian, and it's being used by several of our environmentally focused use cases. Can you explain it and how it's specifically being used in the Hedera ESG ecosystem?
Sure. So Guardian, at a pure technology level, is a piece of open source technology that we've provided grants into some of our systems integration partners to build. It sits on top of the Hedera consensus service and the Hedera token service. What it effectively does is it takes the data produced by projects, like carbon projects, renewable energy facilities. It could be a reforestation project. It could be agricultural regen, like Dovu do. And all of that data is verifiable on chain, on Ledger. And coupled with the digital identities of the actors in that project, so using self-sovereign identity, verifiable credentials, verifiable presentations, creates this chain of trust. Now, no other ledger can handle that sort of scale of data. And we use the Hedera consensus service to verify, to provide the provenance and the data integrity around the provision of that data. But then it all gets rolled up using the Guardian into a token. So you could imagine a carbon credit being represented by a token. Now, in the current broken carbon markets, it's very, very difficult for a buyer of carbon credits or any other kinds of credit to offset their own operation, to access the kinds of data that would be useful in mapping a credit to an ESG policy, the policies that corporates, enterprises, institutions, and increasingly more personal usage have in terms of environmental, social, and governance initiatives. So what Guardian does is it creates effectively NFTs. It's a token, a native Hedera token, which carries all the metadata from that project. And what that actually then means is that marketplaces can form to sell those tokens to buyers. So you've got supply side and you've got buy side. But we've created with Guardian this kind of value chain that's all the way up to the tokenization, which removes friction. And there's lots of friction in the current carbon markets where projects come into market, it's very difficult for them to be registered with one of the registries, very difficult for them to have credits issued, and very difficult for buyers to find those credits. We're solving for all of those problems. And although we talk about Guardian, it's not just this tokenizer, it's the whole ecosystem. So it's the ARM. So the ARM is a automated regression market maker. It's an AI-driven, very, very smart piece of kit, which matches the tokens, the credits, with the signals coming from the market on the buy side, and does it in a very scalable, very efficient way. We've got visualization tools. We've got Nico providing wallet infrastructure. We've got centralized exchanges and marketplace integrations. And we've also got financial platforms. So once we've removed the friction from the end-to-end value chain in the carbon markets and the biodiversity and sustainability markets, what we need is a step change in the amount of finance coming in so that we get more and more projects, more mangrove swamps, more reforestation, more peatlands, more biodiversity projects in Africa, more emissions tracking in agricultural supply chains. And we do that through things like forwards. So forwards are financial instruments that provide finance for a future return, or sustainability-linked loans and guarantees. And we're partnering with Evercity, who are one of the world's first, or their founders were the world's first carbon credits issued onto a blockchain back in 2017. And they've moved across from Ethereum to Hedera now because they see the huge benefits of operating on a ledger that scales like we do. So it's Guardian is a whole ecosystem play. It's a way of addressing the problems with climate change and carbon markets and biodiversity and all the sustainability issues that the world faces in a way that is all inclusive and also interoperable with other chains. You know, we're looking for liquidity to come from other chains through our bridges, and because everyone needs to be pulling together on this. We just believe that Hedera is the best tech and will attract the best talent and the best projects.
So speaking of the ecosystem play, we've been talking about the flywheel effect when building an ecosystem where different players start to leverage off of each other, which can result in exponential growth. We're seeing the seeds of that in our NFT gaming and metaverse space, as well as in the HBAR economy and DeFi arena. Can you tell us about how this effect is playing out in the Hedera ESG space?
Well, absolutely, and they're all interrelated. The foundation strategy isn't 4 pillars of isolated grant funding. Hedera is an ecosystem, and we have many ways to scale the ecosystem as a whole. But starting just with the ESG aspects, we've got, as I've just explained, a whole value chain of many partners, all of which actually are underpinned by open source technology. So although we're partnering with the first movers in this space, we are encouraging everyone to come and build a Guardian, to own a Guardian, to build and own an ARM, to create the infrastructure and the network effect that provides those kind of onion layers beyond what we've delivered. And then, of course, the financing allows that whole thing to scale. But there's crossovers as well. The foundation's crypto fund is providing for things like DeFi, providing for the wallet infrastructure, providing for the centralized exchanges. We've got crossover with the metaverse fund because this isn't just about institutional offsets. This can come down to rewards. We've got quite a few projects looking at collectibles. So Aniseed is a good example of that that addresses conservation issues. Rewards as well are actually just consumer incentivization models, and we're trying to incentivize the world to behave in a way that is not ultimately detrimental to the planet. So, those are all things that are now coming into play, and the overlap is where the innovation is. So crossovers, the hashport bridges, for example, to get liquidity in. We're working with other liquidity providers that are cross-chain too. So there's a kind of an ESG specific ecosystem play, but then, as with all good things that kind of require network effect, you end up locking in innovations in other space and reusing it. And because we are at the foundation driven by usage of the Hedera network, we seek to utilize all the good ideas across the whole landscape rather than just focusing in on pure play ESG solutions. It's all connected.
Yeah. No, there's no question about that. So I want to go back to the carbon markets. You know, there's the New York Stock Exchange for stocks. You know, there's the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. Is there a similar kind of market for the carbon markets at this point?
There are many that have formed over the years. The carbon market infrastructure was put in place decades ago, but it's hugely inefficient. It tends to be mostly over the counter, which means that we don't have a global carbon price. We don't have price signals that allow for equitable matching of supply and demand. And that creates a very inefficient, very asymmetrical marketplace, which creates the conditions for middlemen to extract all the value. And carbon and sustainability projects in particular require the majority of the value to go back to those who are doing the work and not the middlemen. So, for example, I was speaking at COP to some amazing ladies from the Amazon who are representing, tribes people who are reforesting and stewarding their, the rainforests. They see cents in the dollar.
Yeah.
They literally see a tiny fraction of what the carbon market price gets, whereas the majority of it goes to brokers in New York. That's not fair.
No.
It's not equitable, and it's not scalable because the tribes people are then influenced by other sources of income because they need to survive.
Sure.
And what we need is to get fair market price to the right people. And you need proper, efficient, verifiable, auditable market infrastructure in place, and that's exactly what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, the loggers and stuff like that, and the farmers and everybody else, they're the ones who took it off for financial reasons, and they have to be provided with the proper incentives to do it the other way around, right?
And it's got to be commercial, right? It's got to be based on financial, commercial viability. We're all, most of us love to hug a tree, but it doesn't feed the kids, right? So, when you're in an environment where you're kind of subsistence living, then the incentives have got to be right in order to protect the habitats and the natural world assets that are diminishing very quickly.
So how big are these markets at this point? And if we add the proper efficiencies and the proper incentives like you're talking about, how big do you think they could become in the next 5-10 years or whatever point you choose in the future?
Oh, I mean, there are many stats for this, and we've got compliance markets and voluntary markets, and we tend to mainly talk about voluntary markets here, but many tens of billions of dollars of value in the markets right now, and it could potentially scale to trillions. So we're really looking for a step change globally in the amount of investment in the right way into natural assets. And I mean, and that's just carbon. If you start creating the ability to attribute value to co-benefits, so to the other sustainable development goals, whether it be social impact or habitat renewal for biodiversity, or for to protect, for example, plastic from going into the ocean, because these are all really holistic and interrelated issues, then who knows how much these markets could be worth. I mean, many trillions of dollars. And I actually don't see that there's any difference at a technical level between the sequestration or the capture of carbon heading towards the atmosphere from, let's say, the capture or sequestration of plastic heading down our rivers into the ocean, right? Because they have similarly bad impact on the planet, potentially existential in both of those examples. The technology we built is appropriate for both of those examples and everything else, right? Because it's designed to be so. The only differential there is the markets and the value that is attributed to these things. So, should we put a price on a tree, for example, or a habitat? What happens when you monetize nature? It's one of the big discussions that we're involved in through the Task Force for Nature Markets. Or should we attribute value to the stewardship of nature? Is that, it's a more complex thing to consider, but I think it's the better way of doing it. So, those communities that are protecting the natural assets of the world should be protected themselves in perpetuity through financial models, market-based models that work. And the carbon markets were designed by bankers who knew about commodities.
Sure.
And we've inherited a lot of that. I think we need some new thinking around the natural assets of the world that don't commoditize them, but protect the ecosystems holistically.
Yeah, and let's hope Hedera can be at the center of it. I did hear you mention step change. I'm not sure if we should retire that temporarily for now, but that's a good segue again.
I love it.
It's a good segue.
I love the phrase.
Okay.
We should
all
keep
right.
saying it.
As soon as it starts to come to fruition, I'm all about it. But @MyO is a use case that gets a lot of attention, and I know it's been tied up with that phrase step change function. And it's due to the potential transaction volume it could bring to bear. But it's been a long time coming. Technically, it falls under the Sustainable Impact Fund. So do you think you can give us an update on that?
Sure. Well, I mean, we've all seen recently some pretty big numbers on HashScan. I think it went up to about 5,000 transactions a second, which is halfway to the throttle, right?
And sustained at like 600-700 for a while.
Didn't break a sweat, right? Really didn't break a sweat. So Avery Dennison, who are a government council member, have built the ATMA platform, the ATMA IO platform, to really utilize the scalability of the Hedera network. It's for me one of the perfect supply chain use cases. It couples the ability to do emissions tracking with the product provenance at a SKU level, so at an item level, and then scale it. And Max Winograd has been talking about billions of transactions, sort of billions of items per year being tracked on this platform. No other ledger can handle that. I think we've had a taste of what's to come. I can't talk to when it will come. It's stepped up and stepped down again. But once it starts stepping up, once the customers start getting on board. Remember that Avery Dennison has clients. They have big brand names that are associated with them. They need onboarding. They need to start ramping up the usage. But I think we've had a taste of things to come, and once it starts stepping, it won't stop.
So you're confident it is coming?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
All right. So, Rob, it's been a while. Come on now. Rob, we'll open up our lens here a little bit. What's your take on how the entire Hedera ecosystem is growing as a whole?
Oh man, I can't keep track, and I'm inside the tent. I can't keep track of all the announcements every day. I have no idea how you guys do it. Because there is probably enough content for a daily HBAR Bull rather than a weekly one. I think you just have to take a step back, especially in times like this where FUD abounds and everyone's kind of concerned about the price and all the noise in the market. We've those of us who I am a proud HBARbarian and a one center, and we go back a long way. We've been through these times. I'm really, really excited now. I'm hearing a lot more of this narrative about the next bull run being the bull run of utility, because there is only one ledger that's kind of placed really for utility across every sector, across every use case. All the use cases that popped up in the early days of blockchain craze and died away again because blockchains couldn't cope. We're seeing Hedera solutions delivered across the board: micropayments, supply chain, ESG, all the things that we talked about, NFTs, the fantastic NFT community we've got. So and as I keep saying, NFTs, everything's going to be tokenized, and pretty much, unless it's a fungible token, by definition, it's going to be a non-fungible token.
Mm-hmm.
So everything that the NFT community are putting in place now is the foundations of pretty much everything that is going to be built on Hedera in the future. I couldn't be more bullish than where we are. I love crypto winters because I'm a builder. I love to see things being built, and I'm easily distracted by noise. So I like the noise to go away and building cool stuff. And wherever I look, I see cool stuff being built on.
Yeah, it's not, and that's the thing about the utility bull run. That's not something we're coming up with. That's influencers, across the entire crypto space that are coming up with that narrative. And if that narrative catches hold, I can't imagine there being a better positioned platform than Hedera. In the bull run in 2017, it was about retail investment. This past one was about institutional investment. And if the narrative of the utility bull run is the next bull run that we see, it could be really exciting, and Hedera could be in the perfect spot. Rob, is there anything else you'd like to pass on before we let you go?
No, I think I've said enough. Everyone knows where to get hold of me. My DMs are always open. It may take a little while to get back to you because there's so much going on, but feel free to reach out. We've got some ecosystem stuff coming up in the next week or two. So look out for that. And keep on building.
That's right. Keep on building. We're all doing it. So, Rob, you're a great representative for Hedera, and you're always a pleasure to talk to. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Brandon. Speak soon.